it really is that tricky.
A large amount of input from that person.
I'd like to call February's regular meeting of the County Board to order. Would you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody here this morning. Pardon me. I'd like the roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Sir. Patrick.
Here.
Bruner.
Here.
Ellis.
Here,
Farnham.
Here.
Lawton.
Here.
Ludington.
Here.
Boyd.
Here. We do have a full quorum, or a full board, so we'll go on with the minutes from January 12th, regular meeting, and the January 22nd, or 24th meeting, special meeting. You've had those minutes. What's your pleasure? Do you want to approve them as presented? If so, I'd entertain a motion. Phil moves. Russ seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Claims against the county. You got those a little late because of the snowstorm and the shut-off or cut-off period, so do you need a few minutes to take a look at those, or are you okay with them? Yes.
if you look at Committee Code 32, James Jones, I was asking Carl, and he said he thought that the $9,090 was adapting a vehicle for use, sheriff's use.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Does anybody?
that's what it is.
Yep.
I remember the name now. The sheriff told me that's who has.
There was that
Whenever they get
two.
new squad cars, they have to.
I
get
think
all
that
new.
was two, wasn't it, Carl? I think it's two squads, because they got a better price on it, unless they had to get some extra stuff.
That I don't know.
I think it is two squads, because that's what we had to do. Well, we can check on that and get back to you,
All right.
but that's what it is. Carl, do you have any thing you see? I'd entertain a motion, please, to approve the bills as presented. Okay, Phil moves, Andy seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That does carry. County Board member claims? Any questions on that? Hearing none, motion to approve. Andy? Dan? Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, we come to the portion of the meeting where we ask for public comment. We have the roster up there. We ask that you identify yourself by name and limit your discussion or suggestions to us to 5 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to take advantage of our open public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to segue out of the agenda just for a second. Mr. Neal has been trying to get to our board meetings and hasn't made it. I talked to him, a day or two ago, and he said we also are getting you a list of when our meetings are, so you know more definitely when we're meeting. So, Jeremy, do you have a report to make to the board at this point?
Empty out the report. We keep working on our times, getting down more and more all the time, so. Got 3 in the EMT class at Horizon, and we've got 2 in the paramedic class in Lakeland, so increasing staff soon, and things are going pretty smooth, so.
Questions of Jeremy by the board?
You say you gave us a report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like the other report,
Yeah.
only it's different folks.
Trying to see, calls. If 22, well,
That's so far.
47 in January.
Right.
Is that about average?
Well, you can see the last couple of years, they were 46 and 59 for January. So, it's pretty
All right.
close.
Okay.
All right. So you say everything's running smooth. What have you had, 6 months?
A little over.
Yeah, 6 months.
Any further questions? Jeremy, appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you in the months to come. And we'll get that, if we haven't already, we'll get you a schedule of meetings and
Yeah, you
study
got it.
sessions.
Yeah.
You're also welcome to come to study sessions
I was
rather
getting
than,
ready to say, you know, if you can't make it to this meeting, a study session, you know, it's just close out there.
it's a little
Yeah.
more, less formal and,
Right.
but,
Whatever works for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yep.
Okay, we'll return to the agenda at this point. We have first up a presentation by Michael Fries of Klingner and Associates on the progress of the courthouse and the jail projects.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's good to see you again. And so I'm here presenting Sean Harding from HMN, could not make it today. He's our partner on the jail project. I'm here to present an update on the jail project, and I can also provide an update on the courthouse study that we're working on as well. And so when we met last, I'll pass out a plan. I know this was circulated to you through email, but if you'd like to have a little bit larger copy, I can provide that to you. If you wouldn't mind just reading them amongst yourselves there. Should be enough for each. And Jeff, do you need a copy yourself up there?
I would love one, thank you.
Okay, and so what we were asked to do was to start exploring, we're already looking at the county.
Thank you.
The county's looking at the site over at the Vance School. And so what we're looking to do is to see how we can fit a new county jail to that site. And we had done that study to you previously, and the building is fitting. And now we're starting to explore if there's a collaboration between the county and the City of Paris Police Department, how we could accommodate the police department within that as well. And so what we've been able to show is that we can accommodate that. You can see how it's labeled out. I apologize, the color coding did not come through on this black and white copy. But based upon our experience for working with police stations and police departments of this size, we're feeling we're able to get them the space they would need to be able to fit alongside the sheriff's department within the space, and still have the jail to be, serviced by the sheriff's department. The other part that we're exploring right now is the connection to Vance School, with the idea that the Vance School could become part remodeled and part of the project, where if we look at overcrowding here in the courthouse, and we got various other county offices and functions that are outside of the courthouse presently, can we try and consolidate them and have more of a government center, if you will? And so we're working through the study of that. I can hand out to you the little bit larger scale plan of the floor plan. And so right now, we're working along the lines of what we talked about previously, of a county jail with between 46 to 50 beds. And so I can present that to you. What we're looking to do as we connect to the Vance School building and we look at remodeling that into, say if you will, a county annex building for county government, that building, which was built in 1915, and our general assessment right now is in pretty good shape so far for its age. Just like most people who might have been born in 1911, you got a few body aches and things that might need to get adjusted, but that's just part of life, right? Huh? No, some people are still running, 100-yard dashes all the way to the cafe and back, so.
I know 3.
Okay, well, we know that even with good humor and age, you can survive a lot. And I believe, and my partner architect believes, with the Vance School, with some repairs that are necessary, that building can lead many more years of life. Look at this building here. 1891, and got a few opaques, but otherwise, it's still a good standing building. So I think it could be a very valuable solution to the county's need for what happens, not just here at the courthouse, but also over there at the sheriff's department. You do know that existing building has no elevator, and so we're looking at the opportunity as we connect this jail sheriff's building onto the Vance School. We have an opportunity there where we can add a second stair and we can add a elevator to that and not have to go ahead and do modifications within the building to put an elevator. We can do that within our new construction. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have further on that. Part of our other group on this project is Francis Engineering. They've been assisting us with the site survey, and so I'll pass out the topographic survey of the site.
He just makes money everywhere, doesn't he?
And so many of you have been out to the site before, so the site's relatively flat, except you get towards the north end where that old Coca-Cola bottling plant is. It really drops off there a bit. Based upon our study and the site plan that I passed out to you, we're able to occupy the flat side of the site, and we'll still have room for parking in the back for whether it be police and sheriff, depending upon how that gets talked about. I do need to make a point that now that we've started to plan for space with the police department, our next step is to do a sit-down coordinated meeting with Klinger, HMN, County Sheriff Department, and the City Police Department to talk about, okay, we got the general layout of the space, how do we make sure all the needs are covered and accommodate for those? And so we're planning to try and set that up here, middle of March, end of March.
We also need to include the sheriff's committee, at least a couple of the guys. I'm
Right.
sure Carl would like to be there, I'm sure that Andy would like to be there too, okay?
Absolutely. So I'll make sure to coordinate with you on the dates for that, and you can help invite all the different government people that need to be involved, both on the city and the county side.
Will there be more size, will Sean be able to expand upon this a little bit and give dimensions more at
Yes,
that
we
point?
do that. I was able to reach him on the phone, and so the size of the addition that would include the jail and even the connection up to the existing building comes out to 28,300 square feet. So if we were to look at that, I can talk budget numbers now, or I can save those for a different time. But, so if we were gonna look at somewhere between $400 a square foot up to, which is typical for this kind of a justice building, up to 400, so $400 a square foot would get you to 11.3 million. And that's, that $400 a square foot, that was a good, reliable number we've had for many years up until about this year. So, we all know that you go to the grocery store, you try and buy a loaf of bread, it's a little more expensive than that penny pound of loaf. It used to be. So if we start to budget up to, say, $450 a square foot, that gets us up to about 12.6. So really, I think at the moment, those numbers still seem, as a range, still seem to be pretty realistic. And we know that if we need to massage things a bit to get to a number, I think we have the capability with some space here that we can massage that. This growth thing, the plan has occurred because we're trying to accommodate the police department to come join in. And we know from USDA with the rural development, they really value when they invest into capital projects that it can benefit many agencies. And so I think that potentially increases your chances, not only with including the police department and also some of the county government functions, but also, there's some shared use that eventually does save the taxpayers money, because now you're kind of investing into one building, if you will, rather than two separate ones, a county building and then a city police department building. So, so far, that's coming along. Our other parts of the site study here at the Vance School includes the environmental phase 1 assessment. And so we did find that there's an underground storage tank on the neighboring property. We're gathering up the information on that. That property is to the north, but it's much lower in height than where we're at. It's not a very large area as well, so we don't really see that as being an effect to this property or this project, so we're gathering up the information on that. The soil boring, if you had been out down here about a couple weeks ago, our soil boring crews came out and we drilled the soil borings at the site, and the preliminary results coming back that thankfully there's no what we call high plastic clays. So clay, as you know, when it gets wet, it expands and dries and contracts. That's really bad for buildings because you get settlement and stuff happening. Based upon the borings on the site, we've not found any type of clays like that. The soil bearing capacity does appear to be a little bit softer, which is probably typical for this area because you're kind of more towards the river area. But we can easily accommodate that with probably a wider foundation and planning for that. So we're working on finishing up that geotechnical report. So the good thing is that based upon our geotechnical analysis, any major site soil stabilization to make the soils more bearable is not going to be required. We can use the soil that's there. We'll probably just have to plan for a wider footing to spread the weight out. So in our conventional world of architecture and engineering, that's pretty solvable. And I don't see that being as much of a cost increase compared to if we had to strip off 10 feet of soil to try and get out a bad layer of clay or something like that. So I think that's very positive news on that aspect as well. So that's the update on the jail progress. Any questions at all?
Was that underground tank, was that a fuel or water?
That was the fuel tank,
You say it's on the Vance property or the adjoining property?
adjoining property.
Okay.
And really, the area where the monitoring wells are that I found on site are probably no much larger than this room. So we're, usually when those monitoring wells get spread farther apart, that's because they're monitoring out further areas. So I think it's, and it's not necessarily adjacent to the property either, it's around the building. So I think in general, the size must not have been a very large tank, and there must not have been potentially a larger leak, but we're getting the information on that as we're wrapping up our phase 1 environmental assessment, which hopefully when I come back here in March, I'll be able to provide the final update for the phase 1 assessment and also the geotechnical engineering report. Okay.
Other questions on the jail?
I don't have a question about the jail, but Michael, do you have an extra set of those larger drawings?
Yes, I do. In fact, I even brought a full-size set. So if you like to arm wrestle, who gets that?
Well, we need one for the sheriff and we
Yes.
need one for the police chief.
So what I'll do is I'll provide you my stack of extra copies. You can distribute to those who you see fit.
Okay?
And I'll pass those to you here shortly. And then if there's no further questions on the jail, I can provide an update on our courthouse study.
I guess I got a
Oh,
question
sure,
on the
Carl.
Vance building. You haven't, you say you, I guess, you came up with figures on the cost for this. Do we get a cost, at some point, a cost estimate on what you think it might take to renovate?
Yes, when I come back in March, I can have that
Okay.
figure for you.
Yeah, that would be very helpful to know,
Yeah.
we were talking $1 million
Obviously, that's a
renovation,
piece
3
of this.
millions.
Mhm.
8 million.
Yeah.
And that's something too, where, doing a little coordination with Coles County, because originally the grant, I say grant, the loan application you guys were looking to do with USDA was for this jail, but again, I think with the premises of the federal government is, let's try and benefit more agencies in the investment by bringing this piece into the project. It does increase the project costs, obviously, but I think it also potentially increases your ability to get to that loan amount that you want, because they realize they're benefiting, many different agencies. Because it's not just the county, but you think about all the parts of the county government that can be affected by this in a positive way.
I have one more question. We'll need some carve-out numbers on 911, and we'll need a carve-out number for the city police. In other words, a square footage number.
Right.
Because we're gonna be asked shortly, I'm sure 911's gonna wanna know how many square feet they've got and how we've accommodated some of their needs that they've ID'd. And Carl and I've been involved with that for several months. And of course, the city's gonna know you know, at least some idea, obviously not firm, but what they're dealing with, so that they can start making decisions, and if they're a go, then we're good, but if they're not a go, then we need to go back to the drawing boards and excise some stuff out, so. But this is not, it makes sense to preliminarily bring this stuff to this board, and we're not ignoring the city or the sheriff or anything else. Then, once you guys see this, ladies and guys, then we can go forward to them. It's just the appropriate way to do it. We're not trying to cut anybody out, okay?
Yes.
And 911.
Right.
Go
And
ahead,
actually, if
Michael,
we
sorry
want-
to interrupt you.
Oh, that's perfectly good, you bring up a good point. When Sean and I come back in March, if we can also arrange for 911 to have that sit down to kind of go over with them, we can definitely accommodate that. So as far as the overall schedule is concerned on the project, we were to complete this study with Coles County by July. We are, both Sean and I feel very confident we're on good schedule for that.
And if I'm not correct, at some point, then you'll be submitting, or what's our arrangement with CORE to start making sure, or are they down the pike a little bit? Or
So
how?
what we'd like to be able to do is to coordinate with CORE, and actually Michaela Vincent from CORE is sitting over here as well. And so she's visiting today. And so we'll be, they've been open to helping out with some budgeting here at the jail site. And I think we can start getting them some of this preliminary information now, so they can start their basis. And then as we tweak in the future, they'll be able to tweak with that. So I'll be doing some conversations with them on how do we, so that way we're not just dealing with the square foot cost, we're getting a more contemporary number for construction, you know, based upon a construction manager that does work in this area. So I think what I'll do is I'll reach out to them and start that. I'll be doing the same thing for the courthouse already. And so we'll start that process, and that way we can be doing some good bigger checks to make sure our numbers are coming in where we're expecting to. Because schedule-wise, someone did ask me earlier, is what's the overall time frame? And so we believe we have no problem getting finished by July for the submission of the USDA application. And as far as the federal government turnaround on that, you know, that's kind of unpredictable. If I were to say, let's give it a safe 6 months, you go from July to December, with the good approval that we can go forward with the funding of the backing of the government, then we can start to look into design at the end of 2022 or early 2023. A project of this size would be about a 12-month design process to design both the new building and the remodeling for Vance. And so that would carry us all the way through 2023 with the intent that we could be starting to bid this project either late 2022 or late 23 or early 24. So that was kind of the original timeline that we presented to Coles County in the selection process. Yes, sir.
I have a question of Aaron. When we put in the original grant for Coles County, with Coles County to get the money to study all this, once we got that submitted, was it like 5 or 6 months before we actually heard, or do you remember?
On the preliminary architecture report?
No, where we got the 100 and...
Oh, yeah, that sounds fair. When we were doing the grant application?
Right,
Yes, that took 4, 5, 6 months.
yeah, okay. I just wanted to give you some idea how long it took to get some answers, so. Okay,
So in 2024, potentially that's when the bids would come in and we'd start to break ground. And a project of this size is about a 12-month to 18-month project. So you think about the construction cycle, so about mid-2026 is when I anticipate you'd be having the keys in your hand to be able to start using your facility.
4.5 years from now.
Hey, Jeff,
yes, sir.
I want to make a comment based on what you stated. I think what Jeff may
Hang on, guys.
be asking is if, Michael, if you can be in good enough shape with your preliminary architect report for the County of Edgar to apply for funding late 22. Is that kind of what you're alluding to, Jeff?
Oh, yeah,
I'll be
even
ready
sooner
July.
than,
So that'll be an interim step where the county of Ager goes back to the USDA with a preliminary architecture report and start request funding. I think that's what you're getting to, isn't it?
no, because I understood that what we got in July would be what we needed to go in.
As soon as that.
Okay,
I believe you two are actually talking the same thing. So when I say in July, when we provide our final report to USDA, that's for them, for Coles County to then package up that and send it to USDA. So we should be able to do that in July rather than,
yeah.
You was under the impression that grant's gonna be a CF application, a community facilities application then? Okay, you might pass that along to Kevin and Kelly, that
What do they think it is?
it's a preliminary, it culminates with a preliminary architecture report, but it could culminate with an application.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
and part of our work that ends in July is not just finishing the preliminary architecture report, but coordinating with Coles County so that way as they prepare to do their application, we're feeding them the information of the documents that they need to submit with that.
Aaron, they're not gonna want a full drawing of the building in order
No,
to.
the preliminary architect report is probably, I'm not gonna downplay it, doesn't
Yeah,
have to be that
please.
much. But the community facilities grant process locks interest rates in, and they have periods. And it's really, really low right now, and Jeff and I talked.
Yeah, we wanna get there as soon as we
To
can.
grab that low rate, because we think the Fed's gonna raise rates 4 or 5 times and blah, blah, blah. So
Truthfully-
that, I think that's important that we try to get a CF.
Well, we don't wanna wait till the end of the year.
Right, because Sherry said with the preliminary architecture report, we can lock our rate. We can
Okay.
be selected and lock our rate.
See, that's good that we all know that,
Okay.
okay?
So
And I
as
didn't
far as,
realize that.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
So as
especially
far
if the
as
rate's going up.
the report, I'll coordinate with Coles County to find out what documentation they need from us. Because if we can do an early submittal to that, I would anticipate by April, I could be submitting something, or between April and May, submitting on that, provided we got timely decisions made. Because usually that includes my report assessment and the general budget. Because they want to have an idea, and my experience when I've done for USDA projects, they want to know what the conditions are, and they want to know what your preliminary budget is. And so we're close to getting some of that information finalized, so if we can work with Coles County Economic Development to do that early submit, then I think that puts us in a good position, as Mr. Lawson said, to lock in your rate. And then
That's
we'll
fine.
coordinate with Coles County for the final bulk of the submission, so that way we got the rate locked in, we get the last of the approval documents put together, and it's in the hands of the federal government.
Does that give the board a safety valve to make adjustments, though? I mean, we're not committing anything
But ask
final.
high. But I'd ask high.
Right.
We keep getting burned.
Well, Coles County is operating on a preliminary budget for this whole area up there
Yeah.
of 15 to 20 mil. Okay, so we're already falling probably well within that, but
And my
who knows?
recommendation to the board is you ask the highest number you can stomach, because then it's not till it opens that they actually give you the loan. On the day of letting, when it comes in at 12.653 or whatever, then they actually start the loan. I'd highly recommend that you ask for a really high number.
Okay,
As early
we'll,
as this summer.
okay. But we'll all be there together, okay? All right, Michael. Sorry, we took a segue there, but
That
I
is
think it
fine.
was
This was
important.
Very healthy conversation, so appreciate the input as well.
Thanks, Sarah.
And meeting that time frame to get the report in, to lock the rate in, we can certainly get that through this spring. I don't see that being an issue. And I'll coordinate with Coles County about what exactly they need for that. Because if we can do that to help you, we'll be happy to do that. And
We
I'll be
appreciate
talking to
it.
Core too as well, because obviously they'll be assisting us with some of that budgeting. Are we ready to shift gears to the building we're standing in?
I just got one question.
Sure, Andy.
911's not in, is not in this.
Yes,
It's
they
listed
are.
as communications, so they're
Communications,
in
okay.
there, and so what we've done is we've allotted a large space that pretty much accommodates their large space now. And, you don't see the breakout or the detail for the back room and the break room and so forth, but we've accommodated for the overall space that we're requesting.
A
And so-
restroom facility, break room, office, and
So-
communicators.
Their overall space, we have that covered. And so when we come back in March, we like to be able to sit down with them and say, okay, in this overall rectangle for communications, where would you like it? Because we realized they were one of your groups that is very unique in their requests and how specific they were. And so we thought, let's make sure we accommodate the box, because the overall space they need, I think maybe just a little bit extra. And then we'll sit down with them and we'll be able to tailor that to their needs.
You might mention their location is key too.
Yes,
You
their
would-
location is actually located up towards the front lobby area. So that way, because you're always gonna have a dispatcher in the building. And so if someone comes up to the door, and this is one of those emergency situations, if someone's having trouble outside, they wanna run to the jail building because they feel that's a safe place, there's someone who's there who can communicate to them and even be able to have a visual of that. That's fairly common with a lot of law enforcement centers, that the communication or dispatch of staff kind of looks at the front of the building as well.
And that would still be hardened, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Jeff, can I make one more comment or question for the board, please?
Yes,
Or I'll wait.
go ahead.
The acquisition, the option's February, so right away and utilities are always the things that will cause you troubles down the road, so I would assume there'll be a environmental report telling the board it's clear soon, right? And then if, once that option's exercised, I would assume then that Josh would start working on Century Network relocation. Does that sound fair? And that'll take a long time too.
Yeah, we'll be dealing with that here later today,
Okay.
okay?
But that's definitely another moving piece that gets
It's a
involved
big one.
because of the 911, all the fiber optic for the state network that comes through the hub at the current jail site. And one of the, I think, the great things about this plan here that you're looking at with Advance is we're able to keep that facility up and running and build in the replacement floor and then do a more of a cut over rather than try and construct around it and everything. So, but that is, again, that's another moving piece in this whole overall puzzle.
And you've got all of this stuff, Josh, that when you and I talked to them and they had that on the phone, that's all been written down and
Yep.
signed by them, and
And
so
they got
they're,
what their requirements are
Right.
and what they need, and
yep,
and then once we told them we had something firm, this is exactly what we were gonna do, we were gonna proceed further, letting them know, kind of.
Right. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, and now what I can present to you, when I was here last time, I made it to a study session, I talked about, we were looking at where we could add an elevator to be relocated within the county building, or excuse me, the courthouse. And so as you start, you might have seen the plans online. The building, the courthouse, it's amazing how architecture was so detailed and ornate once upon a time. It's almost like a fractal. In fact, my daughter saw this and I thought it was the frozen snowflake, particularly when you work your way up to the roof plan. And so it's definitely a complex building with the way the angles change. And so appreciate the fact you're willing to allow us to do a 3D scan of the building, because that was able to help us accurately document the building and be able to produce a set of architectural drawings. So the overall general set right now is about 10 pages. I brought you the highlight pages of the floor plan. So our goal was to try and find a spot in the courthouse where we could relocate the elevator behind me out of the rotunda and be able to locate that into a quadrant of the courthouse. And based upon our study of looking at all the different floors and how they stack up, there's really only one quadrant that actually has an opening for adding an elevator. When I look at, do we do an elevator, I think it's also important, as I recommended before, let's look at adding a second stairway into the courthouse. So now we have our two means of egress, which is modern day code you would need to do. And this second stair that we'd be adding would also be a smoke-proof stair. Your current stair right now is open air, and so any fire that would start in a part of the building, that smoke would easily spread to all floors very quickly. As you can imagine, for egress and emergency, you don't necessarily want to go down the smoke-filled stair. You want to go down to a more secure stair. And since my philosophy was, if we're already carving out space to put an elevator, inside the building, carving out a little bit more space to accommodate a stair tower. Structurally, we can do that. And we'd also like to be able to leave a new vertical shaftway, so that way as you look to do future improvements here in the courthouse, whether it be adding a sprinkler system or rewiring the building or other improvements, you now have a vertical chaseway where you can run those future utilities of the building through. So I think that's very good planning on the behalf of the board to look at that, because now that allows you to easily continue to maintain and update the courthouse with the easy means of being able to run things from floor to floor. And so the location of that actually is on the second floor is where the state's attorney's office is, in that corner of the building. And below that, when you come outside, that's where the old sheriff's office is, where you can see the etching on the wall. State's attorney's office is right above it, and that lands us into one of your storage rooms down on the basement level. Any other location, if I came over to this quadrant of the building, well, I'm already in this courtroom. We don't want to displace the courtroom. So the way the courtrooms on the second floor, the much larger courtroom lays out, that took off a couple quadrants. Your mechanical boiler room in the basement occupies between this quadrant and the quadrant over there. So where the state's attorney's office straight down is our best location based upon what we found. And the reason we were proceeding this path, because the intent was, let's not, as much as we possibly could, tack something on the side of this beautiful building that, you know, wouldn't do the building justice. And you know, with the constructability and so forth, how do we attach something on the outside where we're very confident we can construct that on the inside. And this actually plays in well as we look to what happens over at the Vance School site, because we're looking to provide a facility that accommodates overcrowding. This could allow us to be able to look at your overall courthouse functions. You know, are there departments? We already know there's the current annex over here where they need to find a home to relocate you out of that facility. How do we, as we potentially possibly would relocate some of the government functions out and potentially focus more on court here in the courthouse. Those are some of the general concepts right now. We did the aerial scan with our aerial drone, and we picked up the roof. And so that's in that larger packet that was emailed to you, and I can provide paper copies of that as well. And so we're in the process right now of getting ready to send this to CORE with your permission. If you feel that the location is a good location, and they're gonna help us with the preliminary budgeting for both the elevator project and also the roof project. So that way we can start to look at what those budget costs are going to be. Up on your roof, you have mostly original slate tile, and slate will pretty much last the lifetime of the building. And so we're gonna be providing you two budget options. One is to go back with the original slate, maybe patch in a few pieces where some might have come out. The second option is, if that becomes too expensive, would be to come back with something that would look very close to slate. There's materials out there now that they call it synthetic slate. It's more of like a heavy duty, very thick Rubbermaid type of rubber. So you imagine the weight is dramatically different, much lighter. And but when you're 2 stories up, you really can't tell the difference between it and an original slate roof. So that potentially could help take a little bit of weight off the bones of the courthouse. And those types of roof systems are usually about a 50-year roof. So whatever we're going to be put back, I think we want to make sure we put back something that's going to last for a long time. So that way, this county board feels they've done a good job setting up for 50 years down the road. Putting an asphalt shingle roof on, you know, budget-wise, you could do anything, but you know, the best asphalt shingle roof system you could get would get you to about a 30-year time. And so we're trying to look at, you know, let's try and do something out a little bit further.
Comments, questions?
Cost-wise, you'll get that too.
What's that?
Cost-wise,
Yes, we'll be working with CORE and we'll be getting those numbers together.
Jeff, what about all the decorative metal work up there?
So,
Decorative metal work.
yes, very good question. We intend to put all that back. In fact, the architectural term is a finial, so you get those little decorative stone columns that come out on top of all the triangles of the roof. Some of those have fallen off over the years and so forth, so our intent is if we're going through this exercise of a roof project, let's repair those as well, because we're gonna have lifts and man out here working. As part of the roof, it's the gutters, it's the downspouts, so we're gonna try and seal up that whole upper envelope with a good way to drain the water, because some of your downspouts, I believe over time have started to either got crunched or they've not survived the time as the rest of the building has, and so there's some more residential sized downspouts out here, so we're gonna look at how we can effectively replace this, so we provide a complete design solution that works with the historic nature of this building.
Is the quiet good, or is it quiet, you're just trying to absorb it, or
And as
what are we
far
talking
as,
here?
you know, as we relocate the elevator out of the rotunda, I'll be providing information to Core on how we like to put the rotunda back. Because obviously we can't just leave a hole there in the center. This county courthouse has a sister courthouse in Pike County, which is on the western side of Illinois, not far from our Quincy office for Klinger, and so I visited there already, and I've kind of gotten some clues of what that looked at. So based upon the remaining rotunda railing that's on the second floor, that old wood railing around there, I got a pretty good feel of how we can put that back to try and make it look a good historical look to fit the building. And unfortunately, people were shorter back in those days in the 1890s. So that railing is a little bit shorter, even up on the second floor level. So we're gonna make sure that when we reconstruct that, we also bring it up to code, so that way tall guys don't necessarily lean over it and come down the rotunda.
Carl? Thoughts? Impressions?
I like the location where to put the elevator. And that works good.
Yeah, it stays away from your main mechanicals of the building. And I think it's really great with this other concurrent project happening with the Vance School. So as we look at, okay, how do we essentially rearrange the functions here in the building? And where do we find space for people? That provides a very nice, viable solution to go with that as well.
So do you go ahead and put the elevator over there first and then take that? I mean, because we're gonna have to continue.
Yes, we would leave the existing elevator in functioning order until the new elevator is in place and ready. And I think the demolition of the current elevator is not gonna be too difficult. I mean, it's obviously demolition, but our thought is we're just gonna take the elevator out and we're just gonna start knocking the bricks down to the bottom of that thing and cart them out the basement.
Well, I think you've been successful, Michael.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much for your time. Sorry for the lengthy update, but I'll also hand off these extra paper copies to the chairman and all these to distribute.
Do you have a time frame on the cost for the courthouse?
I believe I should be able to, when I come back in March, I think I'll have some preliminary numbers where, you know, there could be some massaging of that afterwards. But for sure, May at the latest, I think we'll be able to get finalized numbers and a good partnership with Core on this.
If we're not shocked into not doing it, how long till we be in a position to have, at least for the roof, bid documents?
So we'll be able to have you bid documents ready to bid the project out in the fall. Because, you know, by this time of the year, we're gonna be, as far as roof work is concerned, roofers are already going to be busy. Particularly because this is not an average commercial roof. This isn't a flat roof like over at the school or anything like that. This is something that you gotta have some specialized roofers involved. And so if we bid this package out in the fall, that puts us in a great time to secure a roofer so we could start that spring of next year.
This wouldn't be a good time anyway, probably to
I think kind of waiting to see what happens with the market and inflation too. because we're seeing prices going up and up. Contractors are historically busy right now, and as we're bidding out projects where we normally might see 5 or 6 general contractors bidding, we're lucky to get 2. And so it's because there's so much leftover work from 2020 that got stalled, that's restarted, stimulus money, there's like several compounding efforts. So I think waiting a little bit to try and bid this in the fall gives you a better opportunity so we can kind of see what the landscape looks like and bid this out at the appropriate time. But our intent is to get that bid package ready to you by fall, so that way we can either bid it out then or bid it out early winter. And so let's see how things evolve.
Are you looking at the stained glass windows in the top also?
I would like to, as we look at redoing this rotunda, is to be able to have that stained glass, have light come down through it again. And that might be something we look at as an option, as we do that restoration work, you know, can we include that, what does that entail? I think that would be wonderful. In fact, over at the Pike County Courthouse, they have a very similar skylight. As you get down to their first floor, ground floor level here, you walk across that open, it's not open on the ground floor or the first floor, it actually has a large disc cast in the floor with, must have been very thick colored glass at the time. And so it's actually kind of nice how light actually comes down into the basement level through this skylight, if you will, of sort, built into the floor. So we can look at options, and I'll bring photographs to you. We can start looking at, you know, potentially how do we look to restore the rotunda to the space.
The only other comment I'd have, we don't know what's coming down the pike as far as grants and available monies. And lots of times, if we can get into position to be fairly shovel-ready as soon as possible, it might offer us some opportunities.
And getting a bid package out to you by the fall, definitely doable. Depending upon how we make decisions and how we go, I can potentially get that out to you earlier in the summer.
Well, I just
When we
wanted
look
to,
at that.
we just don't know at this point
Exactly.
what's gonna be available.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Okay, returning to the agenda. Thank you, Mike. Oh, Michael. I'll just put that up here. I'll just put those up here for the time being. Thank you. Highway. First one is a resolution authorizing the county board to sign DLR 05310 LA Fed participation agreement for the Lower T Road shoulders. Any comments? We did talk about this on Monday morning. Do you have any questions of our engineer? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution, please? Russ moves. Andy seconds. Further discussion? Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ellis.
Yes.
Farnum.
Yes.
Lawton.
Yes.
Luddy.
Yes.
Thank you, it does carry. Next is a resolution for improvement of BLR 09110, amended appropriating funds for the following. The HSIP CH4 Lower T Road, Lower Terre Haute Road shoulders. Questions about that or comments? Hearing none, is there a, Russ moves. Is there a second? Andy seconds. Further discussion? Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ellis.
Yes.
Farnum. Lawton.
Yes.
Luddy.
It does carry. Got you in there. Resolution to appropriate local funds for the HSIP CH4 Lower Terre Haute Road shoulders. Questions? Comments? Russ moves. 80 seconds. Further discussion? Mr. Clerk?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton,
Yes.
Ludington.
Yes.
Thank you, it does carry. Next, a resolution authorizing the county board chairman to sign BOR 05530 with Midwest Engineering and Testing for the Lower Terre Haute Road shoulders.
Who's Midwest Engineering?
It's a testing firm out of Champaign, they've helped us before, they just helped us with the Champaign, or with the Staley Bridge.
Okay, all right.
They'll do the dirt, the asphalt, and the concrete.
Further, okay, motion? Carl moves, Russ seconds. Mr. Clerk?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton,
Yes.
Ludington.
Yes.
Thank you, it does carry. Next, file IDOT documentation review number 83, covering receipt and disbursements of the motor fuel tax funds by Edgar County for the period of January 1st, 2013 and ending December 31st, 2018 with the county clerk. Mr. Engineer, do you have anything to say or add?
I do not.
I think we've beat a dead horse here, so hopefully it's to bed and hopefully we get through the townships and we can move on with our lives. So is there a motion to, Carl moves, Russ seconds. Let's call the roll on that.
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton,
Yes.
Ludington.
Yes.
Next item is to approve cottage food operations ordinance. We were lucky enough to have Marissa with us on Monday morning, who explained out the ordinance, its purpose, and how it meshes with the state law. So are there further discussions? Yes, ma'am.
I did check in with Mary Liz Wright yesterday, U of I Extension nutrition educator, and she said she had been involved in working on this with IDPH and was definitely in favor of it.
Okay, it's nice to have some feedback, especially from Mary Liz. Yes, sir.
Maybe Gary could put something in the paper about that to explain a little bit better to the people.
Well, I'm sure he
Okay.
will. I mean, we can't make him right, but
Yeah,
I'm sure he
maybe,
will.
maybe we could suggest it.
What, you don't want anything out in the paper?
I'll buy the paper.
Oh, boy. Is there a motion to approve the resolution on this ordinance, please? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Dan.
Yes, Dan? And Andy? So, are we good to go? All right. Mr. Clerk?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton,
Yes.
Ludington.
Yes.
It does carry. Next, extend, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong one. Resolution to approve change order to energy performance contract with Centrica Business Solution Services. They used to be SmartWatt. It's in your package, and we got a firm estimate of a maximum of $435,747. I think I described to you to be around $425 to $450. I look for it to drop some, hopefully, but we don't know that yet, but this will be a maximum deal, okay? We've had to make some changes in what they included in their firm bid because we had a couple of items that weren't, what would you say, didn't mesh with the description of the work order. So we're trying to do a few things different, and I'm hopeful, and everybody's hopeful that they can, or expects it'll be done. So, max of that amount.
You want to explain what this project is?
Okay, this project is basically pulling and re-roofing the porticos, moving the infrastructure, in other words, the units down to the ground, replacing some of them, consolidating and increasing the efficiency in the courthouse, basically for the second floor, and then re-roofing the porticos. And that is a state grant that we received, what, 2 years ago, Josh, or 2.5 years ago?
2020.
Okay. Motion to approve. Andy moves, Carl seconds. Mr. Clerk?
Patrick,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Ellis.
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton,
Yes.
Luddy.
Yes.
Does carry, thank you. Next, extend solar moratorium to March 9th. Lisa, why don't you take a couple of minutes and explain why we're doing it and what the end game is?
Sure. Last week I updated it with suggestions and improvements, enhancements from Timothy Gilbert, our new Assistant State's Attorney, and I greatly appreciate those. Those made it a much better and tighter document. And then sent it back to Wyatt for Illinois State Farm Bureau legal team to take a look at, see if they had any more suggestions. And so we didn't want to rush this, it's too important. And so by postponing it until next March's meeting, it gives us a chance to have it out there for the public to review for an ample amount of time.
The plan still is before the next meeting to have a public hearing
Right.
and then have it acted upon at that meeting.
So the public hearing would be before our March board meeting, directly before our March board meeting.
So it'd probably be at 8:30 probably, depending on what kind of feedback we get back during that period where people can go online or whatever and take a look at it. Questions? Is there a motion, Lisa?
I'll motion to extend the solar moratorium until March 9th.
And Carl seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Is that okay, Augie?
Certainly.
All right. Next, regular agenda goes into the officers and department heads. Augie?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
I'd entertain questions if you have anything.
Like the meaning of life or?
Yeah, anything.
Okay.
I'll tell you anything you wanna know.
Hey, did you want to go, well, no, that's fine. Aaron, is there anything you wish to?
Johnny Carson.
Okay. Adam?
Nothing new for Monday. I believe Samantha's gonna speak to a few things.
Oh, good. Samantha?
I just wanted to give a 2021 update. If you remember, I came in 2020 to give you an EMS update. So, as you know, the pandemic continued. It increased our costs, our fuel, our supplies, wages, and we are operating in what we consider our new normal. We will have these peaks and valleys, these what we call surges of patients and periods of a little bit of rest. We graduated our first responder course where there were 7 successful graduates for being placed within the community and 7 EMT students during our first EMT night course in the community. Most of those are now employed either through us or through a different agency within the county. We began the first ever EMT basic course within Paris Cooperative High School. There are 5 successful students enrolled in that program now. We have petitioned the State Board of Education to offer the first ever first responder course at the undergraduate level. So freshman, sophomore, and junior will be allowed to enroll in a first responder course because at the age of 15?
16, they can start operating if they can be fully licensed at 18.
At 16, they can operate as a first responder, so they can drive a rural fire truck or on the fire protection districts. And then as a senior, they can enroll in the EMT basic course, so when they graduate high school, they're able to set for their state licensure exam and become employable adults at graduation. We were able to successfully purchase and source, through Adam's hard work, a new Braun Crew Cab ambulance, which allows for training and transports with additional staff. That has increased our fleet to 6 ambulances and our response truck. I'm sure you all have seen Gary's lovely articles that our mobile integrated health service has expanded drastically, also using nurse practitioners to see patients in the home, and there is more expansion of that to come as well. I want you to rest assured that that has taken some load off of our great EMS staff because the hospital is committed to that being a full service line, so we have employed people full-time in that position, only using ambulance as backup should they need to. There is expansion to that program coming as well in 2022. Hoping by the middle of this month to enroll our first patient in what we call remote patient monitoring with 4G enabled devices. So if you have congestive heart failure, we will have a 4G enabled device in your home that is a weight scale, and we will have you weigh in every morning, and we can see that on our platform at the hospital to get more real-time data in order to be able to adjust your medications, keep you out of the hospital, keep you out of unnecessary medical expenses by coming to the emergency room or using the ambulance service. That is all monitored and done in place by our mobile integrated health team. From 2020 to 2021, our numbers of patient interactions increased from 2,500 to 3,500. We have 0 unresolved complaints and 0 clinical errors. We continue to back up all of our surrounding agencies and continue to work collaboratively with ESDA on supply and emergency response preparedness. We continue to work collaboratively with our police, fire, sheriff, 911 boards, and provide medical support to our county fair, participating in multiple school, sectional, regional, state championship escorts. And also wanted to let you guys know that we did increase the wages to come in line with other industries in the community. And we have done an intensive analysis on our paramedic wage, and I am anticipating an increase in that in 2022. We do remain the area's top agency for staff wages, benefits, and a work-life balance. So do you have any questions for me on the EMS operations at Horizon Health?
I can tell you as a bus driver, I really appreciate not having to stop at stop signs and railroads with the
Glad we could
police
help.
right in front of us.
Glad we could help.
We appreciate it.
Never stop sign,
Well, that's beside the point. That's legal.
Thank you for your continued support, and I'm always available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, Jill, do you have, bring
Just
us
a
up
reminder,
to?
we have our, third hazard mitigation meeting, February 15th at 5, Farm Bureau Building. Other than that, I think that's about it. We did use our new alert system to alert all the department heads of, like, the courthouse closing and things like that, so I think that everybody I talked to said it worked really well and took some stress off Augie or Jeff or whoever had to make multiple phone calls, so.
Any questions of Jill? Tom, been
Yes,
selling a
thanks.
little gasoline, haven't you?
Things have been up and down. Wait for the applause and laughter to die down. Thank you. Yes, we had a good month, fuel-wise in January. We did have a preliminary meeting on resurfacing 927 runway, and no updates on the hangar doors or on the taxiway.
Okay. Well, the taxiway though is all set. It's just
Yes,
waiting for.
But no start date, so.
Right, yeah. The weather's in control of that. Any questions of Tom? Okay, HRC. What's going on?
During October through December, we analyze our data every 3 months. We had 42 people served in our drop-in center here in Paris. We also served 38 people in our crisis intervention services. We were able to add a crisis responder, a part-time crisis responder, which is very helpful because those are hard to obtain and keep. And regarding the project that we're working on to try to increase our providers, we did get someone in the position to go out and recruit and go to the high schools and participate in those job fairs, as well as develop relationships with online schools to get more interns from them. Places like Walden have a lot of actually Walden's a really pretty high level curriculum for therapy. So we want to get more of those people. And so they'll be focusing on that, and she's also focusing a lot on developing recruitment materials so that we can better market what's special about HRC to work for, to these employees, our potential employees. We also, well, on the downside, we lost a therapist during this time. She went to Indiana, making significantly more. With that, HRC revised and implemented a new salary schedule for our therapists. We went back and reanalyzed the money coming in and going out, and try to make it more attractive for experienced people to come and really develop a scale that rewards you for experience and licensure. So that's been improved. And we do currently have 2 interns. I expect that we will successfully keep one of those interns on board and become a therapist. And then 2 years from then, become a licensed therapist. Yes.
About those 38 crisis intervention individuals, that's not visits, it truly is individuals.
Yes.
Can you tell if there's any relationship or any impact on the jail? Or, because that was a big part of it, was trying to address some things before it got to that point.
That, I don't know, the statistics or the impact on that. I can inquire, see if we can find out if there's been a difference at all.
I'm just really curious, maybe one of these next times when you.
Especially the drop-in center
And I don't know that you
too.
can tell it, but if there's any sense that we're addressing it with you before it got to the point where they had to call 911.
Yeah. I can look into it, see if we can get some kind of report from the jail and from our crisis team.
Okay, thank you.
I do that.
Any other questions of Jonathan? Hearing none, thank you, Jonathan. Hey, Wyatt.
How's it going?
Good. Anything to add to what's been said? We appreciate your cooperation, by the way.
Yeah, same from our end. We appreciate you guys pushing it back another month. Helped my anxiety to get that turned around a little bit. I commend you guys for taking that extra month to make sure we get this right. Do it once, do it right, at least for a while, until things change. They always change, so. I'll get that flipped around as quick as I can, get you back those comments to, whatever you guys want to do with them, and then hopefully we can get this thing settled and watch the floodgates open, I'm sure.
Well, and don't forget that we need to keep up our collaboration.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
the ordinance can always change as technology or trends seem to fit.
Right,
Okay?
and I'm sure we're gonna have to go back to that with wind, so.
Yeah.
Whenever you guys are ready to approach that again, we'll be ready for you, so.
All right, and Lisa, you had said that, well, we'll deal with that later. Michael, did you have anything else that you wish to, or Core, did you wish to say anything at all?
No, but thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Don is buried on his desk, so he sends his regrets that he couldn't be here. If you notice our cash flow, not everything has been received for the month. Most of the funds from the state have already been, we're up to date as of November 31st, except for local use tax. So everything else has been received, local use, and we're always a little bit behind on Monty's area, which is probation. But that's not Monty's fault, it's just a matter of the function of budget. So we still have roughly 100,000 plus to go into the budget for last year. You'll notice that you have 2 updates on your budget. One is of November 31st, And that's got all the figures on the front page. The other one is mismarked. It should say, and it's dated today's date, it should say budget 2022. And that's the one where I think on the first page, you've only got 4 or 5 incomes. And remember that we had to go 3+ months of state before anything comes into the 22 budget because of the accruals. So we're doing fine. Obviously, we need to continue to watch our P's and Q's as far as budget. But the accruals have been done and are almost finished for last year and this year for the transition. The audit starts next month or at the end of this month. Augie, do you remember?
I don't think I
It
ever
could
was
be the
told. so-
last of this month,
Okay.
the last week or the first week of March. Our auditors will come in and start working on everything, so. Are there any, I know you just got this, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Do you have any questions, Dan? You gotta go? Okay.
I'm not gonna go.
Do you have anything to add to the committee
I
report?
talked to Andrea the other day, the shelter was full, I think there was like 26 dogs. And there's a few outside which we don't like, but we don't have a choice, so. Hopefully we get rid of a couple of them, I don't know, so. I've had somebody contact me and want to contact her to adopt a certain dog, so.
I saw her briefly this morning. She said she had the cameras that she wanted are on order. Everything was working out, different program that she wanted, and
All right,
so
thank you.
things, she and Ross are getting the stuff done.
Yeah, I think finally got all that taken care of, and
Yep.
well, other than that, no problems.
Okay.
I've got to go, so.
Carl, did you have a question?
You have a question, comment?
All right, well, take care, Dan. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Andy?
I talked to Larry with Sycamore about the jail, and he's having trouble with vendors getting back with him on pricing stuff. Because they're not getting stuff in, the stuff, it's such a volatile market with what stuff's costing that they're afraid to quote something without knowing what.
Well, what happens if we just order it? Why don't they just order it and we'll?
I don't think, he talked like, I can read to you exactly what he said.
No,
But they're not getting back with him with exact quotes, and he said, it's so volatile right now, he hates to quote when things are double, but he felt like it would be probably within the week or so, he should be able to have something, so. Anyway,
In the water conditioner or the water softener for the jail, are we?
that's supposed to be part of the deal, I'll check in on that.
Because we don't want to ruin our new
Right,
furnaces.
No, I know.
Even though they're
I
small.
thought, yeah, I'll check with him to see why that didn't happen.
Okay.
Okay.
Nope. Russ? Carl?
On this Fund 100 status, Lisa just asked me a question. This cannabis use tax,
Yes.
where in the world does that come from?
Comes from all over the state, we get a share. And they're actually talking about putting in what do they call it, I don't hang out at those shops, what are they called? In fact, I don't think I've ever been in one, I've been by one.
Where you can buy your drugs?
Right, you can buy your, supposedly there's a vendor going in here, which would then up our share.
That's what we need.
There's a what going in?
A vendor,
See, you can get your
supposedly.
In Edgar County.
Get your gummies.
Biden has his way, we can
No,
have the crap.
everybody gets a piece of the action in the state, okay? It all goes in unless you have more, like if you have a producer, then you get more. If you have a vendor, you get more. If you have both, you get a lot more. But every county gets a piece of the action.
I don't mind getting money, I do mind having drugs in my community.
I don't know how to explain that, except that's the way the legislature.
Well, I guess I'm concerned that we've got a vendor coming into Edgar County. Is there,
Well, I don't know whether it's coming into Edgar County or into the city, we can't control anything and nobody's
This is a
setting.
federal project, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, the state encourages that. In fact, they even give them money, lend the money to set up their, maybe Wyatt knows better. Go ahead, Wyatt.
That's a problem.
I mean, as far as I know, they're giving them some seed money, I guess, or investment.
Seed? Good one.
Does anybody else see any problem with that? That they're gonna, the federal government's gonna provide areas where people could kind of legally come get shot up on heroin or whatever? I'm just telling you, I wanna know.
I think it's just pot, isn't it?
No,
Well, we're
I don't
talking
think
about
so.
pot
I think
here.
it's- This is something, I was talking
Well,
about something
I've been
else.
watching on the national news that they're opening up centers.
Yes, where you can go and get legally get what drugs you
Well,
want.
that's in LA.
You can get your,
It's gonna be everywhere, and.
yeah, they're gonna give away pipe crack, or crack
Yes.
pipes and all that
See,
stuff.
there you go, right back to you. You can get that now, you don't have to worry about it. Think what you can cook now.
Gary, have you heard anything? Not a word? Okay. And my information could be wrong, I don't know. So, yes, sir.
Do you
To
wanna-
clarify, are you talking about whether or not a dispensary is?
Yes,
moving into
that's
it?
the word I lost. Dispensary. I said vendor, but dispensary.
It's all your fault, getting the wrong word.
The county doesn't have the ability to.
Yeah,
to block
but
that
we
or
haven't,
Accept that?
the city, well, in unincorporated parts we do, but otherwise it's up to the villages and cities. So,
The city had passed an ordinance a few months back not to have them.
okay.
That's
well,
what I
maybe-
was thinking, they
Okay, I didn't
made
know
a
they
stance
had.
on that, what I remembered.
We did?
No, I thought
The city did.
No, we
Okay.
didn't.
That's true.
Well, and
That's my
now,
memory.
do we need to?
We
That's why we
discussed
said-
it, what, 2 years ago?
God, I
And,
remember talking about it.
and at that time, the mayor had, I don't remember, the city wasn't gonna do anything until it was presented to them as a problem, and we decided to follow the city lead the best I can remember a couple of years ago. But I can always ask Tim to draw up an ordinance saying that we don't want any dispensaries in the county.
Well, you might wanna look into that, because I can see if someone comes to and says, is there any ordinance against me doing this? And he will apply for a license, and
To
we
the
don't have an
state.
ordinance.
Yeah. Well, it's kinda like solar. We had nothing in place, so we passed a moratorium, and we could, I'll talk to Tim and see what he suggests, and I'm sure he'll consult with Mark and see what we can do there. But either way, the money comes not because it's generated here in the county, it's generated in the state.
Well, I'd be interested in us maybe passing something to
We need to
oppose that.
certainly look,
Yeah, I agree.
be proactive rather than
You just
reactive.
do what
fine.
you said you were gonna do, we'll go from there, huh?
That's fine. Where are we at? Yes, Jonathan?
Just as a comment, as a provider, I don't think it's gonna make a difference whether or not we have a dispensary here or a dispensary across the line. There's already one in Charleston.
Yeah, they go to Charleston.
So I think that the marijuana is already very prevalent.
The only thing you need to decide is whether you want the extra tax money to come to here or go to Charleston.
Or Vermillion or.
Or Vermillion or Champaign,
I don't
because
know
it's
that
all
part.
around us.
Yeah, Danville put one on the state line.
Oh, no, I'm just,
Yeah, it's
Right.
what it is. I
I don't think we
mean,
need that kind of-
Right.
it's legal, we're gonna deal with the problem, so it's up to us how we want.
Carl, anything, was that you?
That's all.
Lisa?
Nothing else?
Okay. Is there anything else to come before the meeting this morning? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, we have closed session.
Oh, that's right, we have a closed session for, closed meeting
Closed session
minutes.
Yep.
Motion to go into closed session for that purpose. Andy? And, Russ? Yeah, we need to take a few minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We'll go into closed session here directly.
Where is the 911 section?
I think it's mislabeled.
It's
I
not
know
called
he
that.
said it.
Are you,
Yes, so now we're ready.
Okay, we're back in session. Is there a motion to keep the closed session minutes closed?
I'll make that.
Andy moves, Russ seconds. We need a roll call.
Yes. Okay, Patrick,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnum,
Yes.
Lawton.
Yes.
Okay.
It does carry. We will keep all of our minutes from closed sessions closed and review them again in 6 months. Is there anything else to come before the meeting? Motion to adjourn, please. Andy moves, Russ seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. We're closed.